Good day, learners. Thank you so much for joining today's lesson. I hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to be dealing with development under the subtopic frameworks for development. This lesson is for grade 11, and as we all know, the subject is geography. The duration of this lesson is 55 minutes, which is a little under an hour. The main topic of the lesson is framework for development, and in this topic, we're going to be solely focusing on factors that affect development. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define development, know and explain factors that affect development, including access to resources, energy, history, trade imbalances, population growth, education and training, natural resources limitations, and environmental degradation. From grade 9, you should know what is development as well as the different factors that affect development. From grade 9, we learned that development is any improvement in the standard of living of people in a specific country. It is measured by social as well as economic indicators. Um, if you can check a few of the words that I've already mentioned, you're familiar with because we've already done this topic in grade 9. So it should be very easy for you to adjust to this lesson. If you can check on the slides, I've provided two figures, which had two pictures that showed two different kinds of settlements. The first one is a squatter camp. It's what we call a squatter camp in South Africa. It is basically a lot of shacks built close to each other where hundreds and hundreds people live in these poor conditions. The next picture is what we call low cost housing, also known as RDP housing. There's an arrow there that indicates that if a person moves from the first settlement to the other settlement, that is an example of development as it shows an improvement on their side. That is all the time we have for the grade 9 recap. Moving along with looking at frameworks for development, specifically looking at factors affecting development. If you can check on the slide, there's a diagram that shows the four factors that affect development. The first one being physical factors, which are one, access to resources, energy, natural resource limitations. The second one, political factors, which are trade imbalances as well as history. The third one is cultural and social factors, which are education and training, population growth. The final one being environmental degradation. As we move along, I'm going to be explaining each and every factor that I've mentioned and giving example and also explaining how they affect development. So keep listening. Before we move along to explaining how the factors affect development, I feel it is very important for us to explain a few of these keywords, such as resource. From grade 9, we learned that a resource is any physical material constituting part of Earth that people need and value, such as air, water, food, minerals, etc. There are types of resources that impact development, namely natural resources, human or man made resources, manufactured resources, and finally, financial resources. Natural resources can be defined as the resources that exist naturally on the planet independent of human actions. These are the resources that are found in the environment and are developed without the intervention of humans. Common examples of natural resources, as already mentioned above, include air, sunlight, water, soil, stone, plants, animals, and fossil fuels. Resources made by humans using natural resources are man-made resources. Some examples of the same include plastic, rubber, paper, and brass, among others. Manufactured resources are goods that are produced mainly by the application of labor and capital to raw materials and other intermediate inputs. Financial resources are the funds and assets that finance an organization's activities and investments. In simpler terms, financial resources are the monies that keep a business floating, operating, or running. Now we're going to be looking at how the factors affect development. The first one that we're going to look at is access to resources and natural resource limitations. Resources are extremely important for development in a sense that if we lack natural resources, our development will be negatively impacted. Limited natural resources are needed for manufacturing goods, and outsourcing resources from elsewhere increases costs. As I've already mentioned above, if we don't have natural resources, we will not be able to produce man made resources, which then means we will not be able to produce manufactured resources, and of course, we will not be able to keep our economy afloat. Human resources. Skilled and unskilled labor is needed for all economic sectors. All economic sectors are highly dependent on skilled and unskilled labor. Lack of skilled labor will result in us having to bring people from other countries, which of course will not be cost effective to us, which will put pressure on our economy and therefore our development will be impacted. Manufactured resources improve development when in abundance. For example, development of agricultural tools and equipments will improve farming and therefore the economy. And we all know when the economy improves, development also improves. Financial resources are, are used to buy goods and services to carry out many main operations of the businesses. If we don't have the capital or the money to buy goods and services, then we will not be able to keep our economy afloat. Therefore, our development will be negatively impacted. The second one is energy. When we think of energy, the first thing that we can think of from the top of our head is electricity, which is a very, very important aspect in our lives, whether it's our daily lives or business lives, small businesses, all kinds of economic sectors rely heavily on electricity. Firstly, electricity serves as a key factor of production for firms, which, as research shows, has low substitutability with other factors of production and thus may constrain output when unavailable. Second, the state, which is the government, uses energy to deliver key public services, including health and education. Thirdly, Consuming electricity may directly improve household well being as well as create efficiency gains, such as in time savings, communication, and educational investments. It is widely utilized in agricultural and allied fields such as the manufacturing and delivery of fertilizers, insecticides, and farm machinery. It is necessary for homes for cooking, lighting, and warmth. Coal, petroleum, natural gas, uranium, and electricity are all fuel materials that may be used to create energy. From what I've read, we can already tell that a majority of our lives depend heavily on electricity. If we don't have electricity, we will not be able to manufacture goods. We will not be able to maintain any of our household activities. Our health facilities will suffer. Therefore, our economy will go down. And we all know that when the economy goes down, development is also negatively impacted. The third factor that we're going to be looking at is population growth. Countries with a rapidly increasing population may not have enough resources for development. Concerns over Africa's fast population increase relate to the continent's failure to provide enough economic opportunities, irregular migration, climate change, high unemployment rates among young people, and an acute lack of infrastructure. On the other hand, the link between population growth and economic development and the debate about fast population growth could make it harder to make sure that future development is sustainable and includes everyone. We all know that when an area has a lot of people, it is very difficult to provide each and every person in that area with all the resources that they need, more especially looking at the high unemployment rates that we have in South Africa. When people are not employed, the economy suffers. When the economy suffers, our development is also negatively impacted. The fourth factor that we're going to be looking at is trade imbalances. International trade is not always fair towards poorer countries. Poorer countries tend to export lower value raw materials, often to richer countries. Richer countries tend to export higher value manufactured goods, which poorer countries continue to struggle to afford. We all know that poorer countries are able to export lower value materials such as raw materials, and then they have to buy back manufactured goods from the richer countries at extremely high prices, which means that the poorer countries are then unable to keep their economy afloat, and therefore their development suffers. The fifth factor that we're going to look at is unstable governments. Historical factors may present an obstacle to the development of a country. War, corruption, apartheid, and incompetence are the main factors here. Governments play a lead role in the development process, and many governments are filled with honest people who do a good job trying to raise both the standard of living and quality of life of the people who live there. Unfortunately, there are cases of governments that have corrupt officials who make money and wealth at the expense of the people that they are supposed to represent. When politicians are corrupt, developments in health, education, roads, power, power generation, and clean water are less likely, which of course means that development is also negatively impacted. If we don't have power, health, education, then we have absolutely nothing. The next factor that we're going to look at is environmental degradation. Environmental degradation can lead to the compaction, which reduces the amount of air and water that can be held in the soil. Finally, it can lead to a decrease in organic matter, which affect the ability of the soil to retain nutrients and water and to support plant growth. This continues the cycle of underdevelopment as it can ruin farming and fishing. To sum up our lesson for today, all the above mentioned factors are extremely important in development. The impacts of lacking even one of those factors are extremely huge. The lack of reliable energy supply, political stability, infrastructure, and educated workforce put countries at a disadvantage. The net results in many poorer countries is that they are forced to export only lower value raw materials such as agricultural goods whilst they buy back more expensive manufactured goods or services. Poor countries do not have the capital to set up these type of industries, which unfortunately means development is but still a dream to many of these poorer countries. I have provided you with the home activity there. Kindly do the activity as it's going to help you retain the information of today's lesson. It is also going to help you gauge your level of understanding on the content that we learned today. As you can see, we have 6 questions over there. Go through them and make sure you go and write them. They're going to be very helpful to you. Thank you so much for joining today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. Up until next time, goodbye.